Hi, my name is Timo Elliott and I'm an innovation evangelist with SAP, and I'd like to talk to you about some of the more interesting definitions of the word big data. First thing to realize is that it's really not that much about being big. Volume is important, but it's really only one of the 3 V's of the best known definition: volume, variety, and velocity. This was coined by Doug Laney, now a Gartner analyst, in 2001, and there have been lots of V's added like veracity and value and visibility and many others. Now, this definition was coined a long time ago and it's still pretty valid. When we talk about big data, we are indeed talking about all of these things, and over the last decade we're starting to see a lot more data, a lot more variety of unstructured and semi-structured data, and we're certainly wanting to access it a lot faster. But that's not the real reason that the term big data has exploded in the last few years. The real reason is technology. All new terms in this industry come originally from technology, and this one is no exception. In this case, big data was really coined by the people who were using new technologies such as Hadoop, the MapReduce algorithm, other NoSQL databases, and they needed a way to talk about that technology that differentiated from the older relational databases that were commonly used, and they, for one reason or another, chose the term big data and thoroughly confused everybody ever since. So that's where, if you go to a big data conference right now, you'll find out that that's what they're actually talking about. They're actually talking about Hadoop and other data sources. There might be relational database vendors there, but they'll be in the minority. Now, other people have tried to come up with different terms. The problem with big data is that it's very vague, and every vendor jumped on to give their definition of big data, and everybody wanted to elevate the debate. Everybody knows they're not supposed to talk about technology, so they tried to come up with more businessy ways of looking at it, and perhaps more useful ways too. So the next set of definitions is big data as differences between types of data. So the first one I'll tell you about is from Sean Connolly of Hortonworks, and he talks about transactions, interactions, and observations. So transactions is the data we've been collecting for a long time. Interactions is where people go to a website or other types of social media, for example. And then observations is everything that's powered by sensors, machine-to-machine type data, for example. And there's a very similar definition that comes from Barry Devlin. He was one of the people that first coined the term the data warehouse, wrote a white paper about that a long time ago. And he came up with basically the same types of definitions as part of a white paper called the Data Zoo. He called them process-mediated data, human-sourced information, and machine-generated data. So that's another definition according to the data types. Then there's a definition that is more to do with the past and the future. This comes from Steve Lucas of SAP, and he calls big data the signals of the future. Instead of the data that we've used in the past, like transactions or finance, which are naturally backwards looking, signal data is about things that are going to happen in the future. The classic example is sentiment. You can find out that your sales will go down in the future if your sentiment is plummeting now. You can find out about some maintenance you need to do in the future by spotting signals for your tire temperature right now. So big data as signals that help us predict and intervene in the future before something goes wrong. The next definition, and one of my favorites, is big data as an opportunity. This is actually from 451 Research's Matt Aslett, and he actually called it dark data, but it's analyzing data that was previously ignored because of technology limitations. And I like that definition because it's very broad, and it applies to what I see in the articles when people talk about the big data opportunity. Matt, by the way, prefers another definition, interestingly enough, by George Dyson, which is data is what happened when the cost of storing information became less than the cost of throwing it away. It sounds great, but I actually don't like that definition very much, because A, it's not really true, it still costs money to store information, and B, it's not really useful in any way. Next definition, let's go at an even higher level, and this is sort of big data as metaphor. This one comes from a great book called The Human Face of Big Data by journalist Rick Smolan. I can thoroughly recommend it. There's also an iPad application. And he defines big data as the process of helping the planet grow a nervous system, one in which we are just another human type of sensor, which sounds wonderfully deep, but he gives lots of fantastic examples of people who have introduced new ways of working with information. And so by the time you've read the book, you'll be nodding in agreement. And the final definition of big data, the one that's perhaps becoming the most common of all, is quite simply to use the term big data for anything that we previously would have called analytics or business intelligence. This is all types of using information to improve your personal life or to improve business. And you know what? Why not? Terms change all the time. That's good enough for me. So whatever the definition, we all agree that big data is a big opportunity and it's going to make some big changes in our personal and commercial lives in the future.